Have you ever found yourself wondering why things start to shift when you care too much? It's a question that many of us have asked at one point or another. And today, I want to explore that with you. I'm really glad you're here. There was a time when I thought that giving my all was the surest way to show I cared. I'd answer every call, reply to every text, and always be available. But gradually, I noticed that what I believed to be thoughtful and caring could sometimes be seen as a lack of self-assurance. Over time, that constant need for validation started to change the dynamics of my relationships, and I began to see how it could even lead to a loss of respect. This isn't about dismissing the importance of care or connection. It's about understanding how our behavior sends messages, sometimes without us even realizing it. When you're too eager to please, it might unintentionally give the impression that you're desperate, and that can shift how people see you. I've learned from my own experiences that there's a fine line between being kind and being overly available. There's a certain strength in holding back just enough to let your genuine self shine through. Now, I'm really glad you're here, and if you enjoy this conversation, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. Your support means everything. I want to share some insights grounded in timeless wisdom, ideas that have been passed down through generations and still ring true today. The focus is on self-respect and the power of self-control, qualities that naturally draw respect from others. You see, when you concentrate on nurturing your inner strength, you don't need to seek approval all the time. That confidence speaks for itself, and it makes your genuine care even more compelling. Imagine a moment when every small gesture feels like a test of how much you really care. At first, you might feel that you're building a deeper connection, but over time, the very intensity of your actions can create distance. It's like trying too hard to be noticed, and sometimes that effort overshadows who you truly are. I understand that it can be tough to navigate this balance. It's not about withdrawing your affection or coming off as indifferent. It's about finding that middle ground where you remain authentic while also holding on to the quiet strength that makes you, well, you. Today, I'm inviting you to reflect on your own experiences, those moments when you might have felt that your genuine care was misinterpreted. What if you could embrace your inner confidence and let it radiate naturally? So, as we settle into this conversation, think about the times you've given your all and wondered if there might be a better way, a way that respects both your heart and your sense of self-worth. Let's uncover together how you can maintain that balance, ensuring that your warmth and care continue to shine without ever coming off as desperate. Let's explore this together. Let's talk about desperation behaviors and their impact, unpacking the subtle signs that may diminish your attraction. Have you ever noticed that sometimes the more you try to show you care, the less attractive you end up seeming? It's not that you're doing anything wrong on purpose, it's just that some behaviors can come off as a bit too eager. Let's chat about those subtle signs that might be quietly undermining your appeal. I remember a time when I used to check my phone every few minutes, waiting anxiously for a reply. It felt natural at the moment. I was excited to connect, and every notification was like a little burst of hope. But over time, I began to see that over-texting can send a message of over-availability. When you're constantly reaching out without giving the other person space, it can inadvertently signal that you're relying too much on external validation. Instead of radiating confidence, you might be coming off as someone who needs constant reassurance. Then there's the habit of chasing, reaching out repeatedly when plans get delayed or cancelled. It might feel caring to show that you're interested, but the repeated pursuit can also be interpreted as insecurity. It's almost as if you're saying, "I need you to be with me, and I can't handle not knowing where I stand." In many cases, that kind of behavior diminishes the natural respect that comes from self-assuredness. People are drawn to those who are comfortable in their own skin, and when you're always on the chase, it subtly suggests that you're not entirely secure in who you are. Jealousy is another common behavior that often creeps in quietly. It might start as a small seed of worry when someone else catches your eye or when you see someone interacting with the person you're interested in. But if that seed grows into constant monitoring or unsolicited questioning, it can quickly become a problem. When jealousy drives your actions, whether it's through constant checking in or making offhand comments about someone else's involvement, it tends to cloud genuine care with a hint of possessiveness. This behavior can push people away because deep down, everyone wants to feel trusted and respected. I've seen these patterns play out in my own life and in the lives of friends. There was a friend who would always make himself available, rearranging his plans at the drop of a hat, just to be there for someone he cared about. At first, it was flattering to see someone so committed, but soon enough, his constant availability began to erode the natural balance in his relationships. His actions, though well-meaning, started to signal that his self-worth depended on the attention he received. And as a result, the respect he once commanded slowly gave way to a kind of weary pity. It's important to remember that none of these behaviors are inherently bad. Showing care is a wonderful thing, and a little attention can go a long way. The challenge arises when these actions become habitual, when over-texting, chasing, or displaying jealousy starts to feel like your default mode. In those moments, what was once a sign of genuine interest can morph into a signal of desperation, and that desperation in turn can detract from the very respect and attraction you're trying to build. Often, these behaviors are rooted in an underlying fear, a fear of not being enough. When you're constantly trying to prove your worth by being overly available or by chasing after someone, it's usually because there's a little voice inside saying that you're not inherently valuable on your own. And that voice, if left unchecked, can lead you down a path where every action is a bid for validation. It becomes a cycle. The more you try to prove yourself, the more you reinforce that very insecurity. Let's think about it this way. When you're too busy chasing after someone or constantly checking in, you're not giving yourself the chance to shine as your authentic self. Instead, you're stuck in a loop where your happiness feels tied to someone else's response. It's a bit like trying to run on a treadmill that never stops. You're exerting effort, but you're not really moving forward. And while it might seem like you're doing everything right by being so available, the reality is that this behavior can slowly chip away at the respect you'd naturally command if you were secure in your own worth. Another aspect to consider is how these behaviors can inadvertently set an expectation. When you're always there, always reachable, it can lead the other person to take your presence for granted. Instead of appreciating the times you're together, they might start expecting that level of attention as the norm, which can diminish the specialness of your interactions. It's a subtle shift, but over time, it can lead to a situation where your genuine care is seen as an obligation rather than a heartfelt expression of affection. What about the role of jealousy in all this? Jealousy often creeps in when there's a fear of losing something important. A little bit of jealousy can be natural. It shows that you care deeply. But when that feeling turns into constant monitoring or intrusive questions, it starts to overshadow the respect that forms the basis of a healthy relationship. When someone senses that you're not entirely secure in your own value, it can create a dynamic where respect is gradually replaced with the need to prove yourself over and over again, and that shift is rarely healthy for either person involved. I've found that one of the best ways to counter these behaviors is to focus on cultivating your own interests and passions. When you invest in yourself, whether it's through a hobby, your work, or simply spending quality time alone, you start to build a sense of self-assurance that doesn't rely on someone else's validation. This inner confidence not only makes you more attractive, but it also reinforces the idea that you're complete just as you are. Imagine if, instead of sending another text or making another call, you took a moment to enjoy an activity that brings you joy. That shift in focus not only gives you a breather, but it also sends a clear message. Your happiness isn't dependent on someone else's response. Over time, this approach can transform the way people perceive you. Rather than being seen as someone who's desperate for attention, you're viewed as someone who values themselves and, by extension, deserves respect. In relationships, respect is a two-way street. It grows naturally when both people feel secure and valued. When you allow yourself the space to nurture your own self-worth, you create an environment where genuine attraction can flourish. It's not about withdrawing or playing hard to get. It's about striking that perfect balance where you're attentive without sacrificing your own sense of self. I know that changing these habits isn't easy. It takes time and conscious effort to break free from the cycle of over-texting, chasing, and jealousy. But the payoff is worth it. When you learn to hold on to your own value, you not only transform how others see you, but more importantly, you transform how you see yourself. And that, in the end, is the foundation for any truly respectful and lasting relationship. As we wrap up this part of our conversation, take a moment to reflect on your own interactions. Are there times when you might be giving away more of yourself than you intend? How often do you find yourself caught up in the need for constant validation? It might be worth considering if stepping back and focusing on your own passions could be the key to building stronger, more respectful connections. Remember, every time you choose to invest in yourself, you're sending out a powerful message that you're confident, complete, and deserving of genuine respect. And that inner strength is something that will always shine through no matter the circumstances. As we unpack these behaviors and their impact, I hope you come away with some useful insights that help you nurture both your care for others and your own self-respect. Let's keep working together to build relationships that honor who we are, without ever losing the respect and attraction that come from simply being authentically ourselves. Let's talk about psychology behind respect and attraction, how confidence and self-control create real impact. Have you ever noticed that when someone exudes confidence, people naturally gravitate toward them? It's not magic, it's human psychology at work. Confidence builds respect because it tells others that you believe in yourself, that you know your worth, and that you're capable of handling whatever comes your way. When you carry yourself with a quiet assurance, you send out a signal that you're in control, and that in turn makes people trust and admire you. I remember when I first started to understand this dynamic, it wasn't about being boastful or loud, it was about quiet strength. There's something incredibly attractive about someone who doesn't need constant validation from others. That inner drive, that steadfast belief in who you are, sets you apart in any interaction. You see, respect isn't forced, it's earned over time, and it starts with a deep-seated confidence that comes from knowing your own value. Now let's add another layer to this idea, one that comes from Stoic principles. Stoicism teaches us that self-control is a cornerstone of a balanced life. Imagine being in a situation where everything seems to be spiraling out of control, but you remain calm and collected. That calmness isn't born out of indifference, it's the result of disciplined thought and a focus on what you can control. Stoic teachings encourage us to accept what we cannot change while working diligently on what we can. When you practice self-control, you show that your emotions don't dictate your actions, something that many find immensely appealing. This approach isn't just a lofty ideal, it translates directly into everyday behavior. When you respond to challenges with a composed mindset, you demonstrate maturity and resilience. For instance, think about a time when plans fell through or things didn't go as expected. The person who can shrug off disappointment, learn from the situation, and move forward is often the one who commands respect. That's the beauty of self-control. It transforms stressful situations into opportunities to showcase your inner strength. I've seen this in real life more times than I can count. There was a period when I struggled with overreacting to minor setbacks. It felt natural to get upset, to let frustration take over. But as I started applying these Stoic principles, I began to notice a shift. I wasn't letting small issues dictate my mood, and I started to see that people responded differently when I remained composed. My relationships, whether professional or personal, became more grounded because I wasn't caught up in a cycle of constant emotional upheaval. Instead, I began to attract respect, not by demanding it, but by simply living in a way that reflected inner balance. The connection between confidence and respect is deeply rooted in how we perceive ourselves. When you have confidence, you project a sense of security that invites trust. It tells others that you're not easily rattled, that you're capable of handling life's ups and downs without losing sight of your goals. And that kind of reliability is incredibly attractive. People are drawn to those who seem self-assured because it offers them a sense of stability in return. This idea also plays a huge role in the way we set boundaries. When you're confident, you're more likely to stand firm on what matters to you. You're less likely to compromise your values just to please someone else, because you know your worth. And when you hold true to your principles, you naturally earn the respect of others. It's a simple truth. The more secure you are in your identity, the less you feel the need to seek approval from everyone around you. That independence not only preserves your energy, but also makes your presence more magnetic. Now let's consider how these insights manifest in everyday interactions. Imagine you're in a conversation with someone who is constantly seeking validation. Their responses might be overly enthusiastic or anxious, which can create an unbalanced dynamic. On the other hand, when you're interacting with someone who is confident and practices self-control, the conversation flows naturally. There's a sense of ease, a rhythm that comes from knowing when to listen and when to speak. This balance not only makes the interaction more enjoyable, but also leaves a lasting impression of respect. You might ask, how do I cultivate this kind of confidence and self-control in my own life? The answer lies in understanding that these qualities are not about suppressing your emotions, but rather about managing them wisely. It's about recognizing that every emotion is valid, yet choosing not to let them drive your actions. Start by setting small goals. Perhaps it's taking a moment to breathe deeply before reacting, or reminding yourself that it's okay not to have all the answers immediately. Over time, these small practices add up, reinforcing the belief that you're capable of handling whatever comes your way. Another key point is the importance of self-reflection. Sometimes our behaviors are influenced by past experiences or deeply ingrained habits that we might not even be aware of. Taking time to reflect on why you react in certain ways can be incredibly empowering. It might reveal that some of your responses are rooted in old patterns that no longer serve you. By understanding the source of these behaviors, you can begin to change them. This self-awareness is a critical component of both confidence and self-control. It's the first step toward living more authentically and with greater respect for yourself. It's also essential to surround yourself with people who reinforce these positive traits. When you're around individuals who model calm, confident behavior, it becomes easier to adopt those habits yourself. Their influence can serve as a reminder that it's possible to navigate life's challenges without compromising your inner peace. In turn, you become more resilient, more capable of handling criticism or setbacks without taking them personally. And as your self-assurance grows, so does the respect others have for you. One of the most profound realizations in my journey was that real confidence isn't about pretending to be perfect. It's about embracing your imperfections and understanding that every challenge is an opportunity to learn. When you approach life with this mindset, you not only build inner strength, but also inspire those around you. People appreciate authenticity, a genuine acknowledgement of both your strengths and your struggles. It creates a space where mutual respect can thrive, free from the pressure of maintaining an image that isn't truly you. In practice, these insights have helped me navigate both personal and professional relationships with a renewed sense of purpose. I've learned to trust that my worth isn't defined by the opinions of others, and that by remaining true to myself, I naturally command respect. This doesn't mean I'm immune to challenges or setbacks. It simply means that I meet them with a mindset built on calm determination. And that approach has not only enhanced my interactions, but also deepened my connections with those around me. So, if you're looking to build more respect and foster genuine attraction, start by nurturing your inner confidence and practicing self-control. These aren't traits you acquire overnight, but with patience and commitment, they become an integral part of who you are. Every time you choose to respond calmly, every time you reaffirm your own value, you're building a foundation that others will admire. And in the end, that foundation is what truly sustains lasting respect and meaningful connections. I invite you to reflect on your own experiences. Consider the moments when you felt most confident. What was it about that state of mind that made you feel unstoppable? How can you bring that same sense of calm and control into your daily interactions? By taking these small steps, you're not only investing in your own well-being, but also creating an environment where respect flourishes naturally. We unpack the psychology behind respect and attraction. I hope these insights inspire you to embrace your inner strength and allow your genuine self to shine through in every aspect of your life. Remember, true confidence and self-control aren't about perfection. They're about the journey of becoming the best version of yourself, one calm, deliberate step at a time. Let's explore this, passing tests and maintaining self-worth. Have you ever noticed that sometimes relationships feel like an unspoken challenge, almost as if you're being tested? It might sound a bit odd at first, but many women do, consciously or not, perform little tests in relationships to gauge a man's character, reliability, and self-respect. And today, I want to break it down and explore exactly what these tests can look like, as well as what it means to pass or sometimes fail them. Imagine you're on a date or in the early stages of getting to know someone. There might be moments when your actions, words, or even your reactions are put under a sort of gentle scrutiny. It's not about catching you out or being adversarial. It's more like a natural way to understand if you're someone who values yourself as much as you value the relationship. For instance, a woman might mention that she's busy or even playfully challenge you to see if you're willing to give her space. It's a subtle way of asking, are you confident enough in who you are, or are you going to get upset or overly clingy when things aren't immediate? Now let's look at some real-world examples of how these tests might play out. Picture a scenario where you're texting and your partner deliberately takes a while to reply. It might feel like a small inconvenience at first, but underneath, it could be a way of seeing if you'll respect her need for space. If you immediately bombard her with messages asking why she's taking so long, that might signal to her that you're too dependent on her response for your own self-worth. On the other hand, if you calmly acknowledge her time and keep yourself occupied without sending extra messages, you're passing that test. You're showing that you respect both her boundaries and your own independence. Another example might be when she shares a problem or a minor inconvenience and looks to see how you respond. Does your reaction come off as overly apologetic, or does it show that you're willing to support her while also maintaining your own balance? There's a fine line between being caring and being so eager to please that you lose sight of your own needs. Passing this test means showing empathy without completely subsuming your identity or self-worth into the situation. It's about recognizing that while you care deeply, you're not responsible for fixing every little issue instantly. Let's be honest. Sometimes these tests can feel confusing. It's not always clear if they're meant to gauge your reaction or if they're just a natural expression of her own insecurities. The important thing to remember is that these tests aren't designed to trap you. Rather, They're opportunities for both of you to show mutual respect and self-assuredness. When you respond to these moments with calm confidence, you're demonstrating that you value yourself, and that in turn makes it clear that you deserve respect in the relationship. Now let's talk about what happens when these tests aren't passed. Failing isn't about making mistakes. It's about reinforcing a pattern where your self-worth seems too dependent on external validation. Imagine a scenario where she mentions, even casually, that she's considering hanging out with someone else, and you react with panic or jealousy. That reaction might inadvertently signal that your sense of self is too intertwined with her presence. Instead of showing that you're secure in who you are, it could give the impression that your identity is at risk without her constant affirmation. And that can shift the balance in the relationship in ways that aren't healthy for either of you. On the flip side, passing these tests isn't about being aloof or detached. It's about striking a balance. For example, if she mentions that she needs some alone time or that she's meeting up with friends, a confident response might be, "That sounds great. Enjoy yourself. I'll catch up with you later." In that moment, you're saying, "I respect your space, and I have my own life too." That kind of self-assuredness not only reassures her of your independence, but also shows that you have a rich life beyond the relationship, a key component of true self-worth. Sometimes the tests are less obvious. They might come in the form of subtle comments or hints about her expectations. Perhaps she'll remark on how often you're available or make a joke about you being too eager. It can be tricky to decipher whether it's a playful tease or a deeper concern. In those moments, it helps to take a step back and assess your own feelings. Ask yourself, am I responding from a place of insecurity, or am I simply engaging in a natural back-and-forth banter? When you can distinguish between the two, you're more likely to maintain your self-worth. It's perfectly okay to enjoy the conversation while still holding on to the understanding that your value isn't dependent on someone else's validation. I found that a big part of passing these tests lies in consistent self-awareness. It's about regularly checking in with yourself and ensuring that your reactions are rooted in genuine self-confidence rather than fear of rejection or loss. Sometimes it might mean taking a moment to breathe before you reply to a challenging comment. Other times, it could be a sign that you need to engage in activities that reinforce your independence, whether it's a hobby, exercise, or spending time with friends who remind you of your worth. In relationships, the dynamic of testing isn't necessarily a bad thing. When done in a balanced and respectful way, these tests can actually help both partners grow. They encourage open communication about needs and boundaries, and they highlight the importance of maintaining individuality within a partnership. The key is to view them not as obstacles, but as opportunities to demonstrate that you're secure enough to handle life's little challenges without compromising your self-respect. For instance, if a test arises around communication, say she intentionally leaves a message unanswered to see how you react, the best approach is to remain calm and collected. Let your day continue without making the moment all about her response. This shows that while you value communication, you also understand that not every moment needs an immediate reaction. It's a gentle reminder to both of you that time and space are natural parts of any healthy relationship. There are also moments when you might inadvertently fail a test because you're caught off guard by your emotions, and that's okay. Recognizing a misstep is a valuable part of the journey toward maintaining self-worth. It gives you a chance to reflect on your behavior and consider how you can handle similar situations better in the future. Self-improvement isn't about never making mistakes. It's about learning from them and growing stronger in the process. One effective way to reinforce your self-worth is to remind yourself of your own values and strengths regularly. When you're clear about who you are and what you stand for, you're less likely to feel the need to prove yourself constantly. That inner clarity serves as a foundation that can help you navigate any test that comes your way. It's a practice that builds over time, each moment of self-reflection adding to your overall sense of self-assurance. Another point to consider is the role of mutual respect in these tests. While it's important to maintain your own self-worth, it's equally important to respect her need for validation and her own tests. Relationships thrive on a balance of give and take, and understanding that she too may be seeking reassurance in her own way can foster a more empathetic connection. When both partners work to maintain their independence and self-respect, the relationship becomes a partnership where both individuals feel valued, not just for what they provide to the other, but for who they are. To sum it up, passing these unspoken tests isn't about playing a game or hiding your true self. It's about being authentic and confident, knowing that your worth is intrinsic and not dependent on external approval. When you approach these moments with a clear mind and a steady heart, you create an atmosphere where both you and your partner can flourish together. So let's take a moment to reflect. Have you noticed these subtle tests in your own relationships? How do you typically respond, and what might you do differently next time to ensure that your self-worth remains intact? I hope you find that by focusing on your own value, you not only pass these tests, but also pave the way for a deeper, more respectful connection. Remember, every step you take toward nurturing your self-respect is a step toward building relationships that honor both your care for others and the strength that comes from within. We uncovered the truth about passing tests and maintaining self-worth. It's all part of the journey toward a balanced and fulfilling relationship, one where mutual respect and genuine connection can thrive. Let's continue to learn, grow, and embrace who we are, knowing that our value remains constant, regardless of any test along the way. Let's explore Stoic strategies to avoid desperation, embrace detachment, and personal growth. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the constant need to be connected, to be available, or to chase validation in your relationships? It's a feeling that can drain your energy and blur the line between caring and desperation. Today, I want to share some practical strategies inspired by Stoic philosophy that help you practice detachment and focus on personal growth. These strategies aren't about shutting yourself off or becoming indifferent. They're about cultivating inner strength and clarity so that your worth isn't tied solely to romantic pursuits. One of the first steps in adopting these Stoic strategies is to embrace the art of detachment. Now, detachment might sound cold or uncaring, but in reality, it's about finding balance. It's about recognizing that while relationships are important, they shouldn't be the sole measure of your happiness or self-worth. When you begin to detach, you learn to observe your emotions without letting them dictate your actions. This practice can be incredibly freeing. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the need for constant validation, you start to appreciate the space you have to think, reflect, and grow. A great way to start practicing detachment is by setting aside dedicated time for yourself. Imagine having a few moments every day where you step away from social interactions, whether that means putting your phone on silent or carving out time to engage in a hobby. These moments allow you to connect with your inner self and remind you that your value isn't dependent on someone else's attention. By doing this, you gradually build a reservoir of self-confidence that makes you less likely to feel desperate for external approval. Instead, you learn to enjoy your own company and invest in your personal passions. Speaking of passions, another key strategy is to focus on personal growth. When you channel your energy into developing your skills, nurturing your interests, or pursuing a life purpose beyond romantic endeavors, you create a life that's rich and fulfilling on its own. This could mean learning a new instrument, taking up a sport, or dedicating more time to your career. Setting goals that are independent of your relationship status reinforces the idea that your happiness comes from within. Over time, these pursuits not only make you feel more accomplished, but also naturally attract respect and admiration from those around you. I've noticed that many people fall into the trap of thinking that love and relationships are the ultimate sources of validation. But when you shift your focus to personal growth, you begin to see that there's a world of fulfillment waiting for you beyond any single relationship. It might feel challenging at first. After all, it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of romance. But the truth is, a fulfilling life is built on a strong foundation of self-respect and purpose. By investing in yourself, you're not only cultivating your talents and interests, but you're also sending a powerful message. You are complete and valuable just as you are. Let's talk about the importance of self-reflection in this process. One of the core tenets of Stoicism is to examine your thoughts and behaviors without judgment. Take time each day to reflect on your actions and understand why you feel the way you do. Are there moments when you feel particularly vulnerable or overly eager for validation? By identifying these patterns, you can begin to understand the root causes of your desperation. Perhaps it's a fear of being alone, or maybe it's an old habit that's hard to break. Recognizing these feelings is the first step toward letting them go. Another powerful practice is to remind yourself of what you can control and what you can't. Stoics believe that while we may not be able to control external events or the actions of others, we can always control our reactions. When you're faced with a situation that triggers a desperate response, pause and ask yourself, is this within my control? More often than not, the answer is no. By focusing on what you can control, your thoughts, your reactions, and your choices, you empower yourself to act with reason rather than emotion. This shift in mindset is crucial for building a more resilient, self-assured outlook on life. It can also be helpful to create a personal mantra or set of affirmations that reinforce your independence. Think of phrases that remind you of your worth, such as, "I am enough on my own," or "My value is not defined by anyone else." Recite these affirmations during moments of doubt or as part of your morning routine. Over time, these words will become a part of your inner dialogue, quietly fortifying your self-esteem and helping you maintain a healthy detachment from the need for constant validation. Another strategy to avoid desperation is to surround yourself with a supportive network that encourages personal growth. When you spend time with people who value independence and self-improvement, it becomes easier to adopt those habits yourself. Whether it's friends who challenge you to try new things or mentors who inspire you to reach higher, these positive influences serve as constant reminders of the life you're capable of building on your own. This community not only provides practical support, but also reinforces the idea that a fulfilling life is an ongoing journey rather than a solitary pursuit of someone else's approval. While focusing on personal growth, don't forget to nurture your passions. Sometimes, in the midst of a busy life, we forget the importance of engaging in activities that truly bring us joy. Whether it's reading, painting, hiking, or cooking, make time for the things that make you feel alive. These moments of joy not only enrich your day, but also remind you that life is about more than just the ups and downs of romantic relationships. They help you reconnect with your inner self and build a life that's uniquely your own. Developing your own life purpose goes beyond simply filling time. It's about creating a vision for your future that excites you. A vision that is centered on your passions, goals, and values. When you have a clear sense of purpose, you naturally become less dependent on the fleeting affirmations of others. This purpose acts as a compass, guiding you through challenges and reminding you that your journey is yours alone. It's a liberating feeling to know that you're not defined by your relationships, but by your contributions to the world and the person you are becoming. Of course, there will be times when old habits resurface, when the lure of external validation feels particularly strong. In those moments, remind yourself that detachment isn't about denying your feelings. It's about acknowledging them and then choosing to focus on what truly matters, your own growth and well-being. It takes practice, and sometimes it's a gradual process. But each time you choose to step back and let go of the need for constant approval, you're taking a significant step toward a more balanced and fulfilling life. As we wrap up this part of our conversation, I invite you to reflect on your own journey. What are some of the ways you can start to practice detachment and focus on your personal growth today? How might dedicating time to your passions change the way you approach relationships? By asking these questions and taking deliberate steps toward nurturing your inner self, you set the stage for a life where your worth is self-determined and your happiness isn't contingent on anyone else. We explored these Stoic strategies to avoid desperation. I hope you find these insights helpful and that they inspire you to build a richer, more self-affirming life, one that celebrates personal growth, embraces healthy detachment, and honors the incredible person you already are. Remember, the journey toward a more balanced life is ongoing, but every step you take is a victory in itself. Let's talk about knowing when to walk away, the power of self-respect in action. Have you ever felt that deep tug in your heart when you realize you deserve better? Sometimes, the hardest decision is knowing when to walk away. It's not about giving up. It's about honoring your self-respect and refusing to settle for less than you deserve. I want to share some thoughts and real-life examples that illustrate just how transformative it can be when you choose to leave a situation that diminishes your worth. I remember a time when a friend of mine, let's call him Alex, was in a relationship where his efforts were met with indifference and at times outright disrespect. At first, Alex tried to overlook the subtle digs and dismissive remarks, hoping that things might eventually improve. But over time, he began to see that these behaviors weren't isolated incidents. They were part of a pattern that slowly eroded his self-esteem. Alex eventually made the brave decision to walk away, and what happened next was nothing short of empowering. When you allow someone to disrespect you, it sends a message to both yourself and others that your boundaries are flexible. Alex's story is a reminder that self-respect isn't just an abstract concept. It's something you demonstrate every day by how you allow others to treat you. The moment he chose to prioritize his own well-being, everything shifted. His decision to leave wasn't a failure. It was a powerful affirmation of his self-worth. He soon found himself surrounded by friends who truly valued him and opportunities that he never would have considered if he'd stayed in that toxic environment. I've also seen this principle play out in smaller, everyday moments. Think about a time when you've been in a situation, maybe with a friend, a colleague, or a partner, where your contributions and feelings were constantly minimized. It might have been a conversation where your opinions were brushed aside, or a moment when you felt you were being taken for granted. These instances can add up over time, leaving you feeling undervalued and drained. The power of walking away in these cases is that it allows you to reclaim your energy and your sense of self. It's a gentle reminder that you are not obligated to remain in a space that doesn't nurture you. Let's consider another example. This one from my own experience. I once had a professional relationship that began with promise and mutual respect. However, as time passed, the dynamic changed. I found that my contributions were often overlooked, and my ideas, no matter how thoughtfully presented, were dismissed without consideration. It reached a point where I was constantly questioning my abilities, wondering if I was truly valued. The turning point came when I realized that staying in that environment was not only harming my career, but also my self-esteem. I made the decision to leave and pursue opportunities that celebrated my skills. That choice wasn't easy. It came with its own set of uncertainties, but the relief and newfound respect I earned for myself were well worth it. Walking away is about more than just removing yourself from a negative situation. It's about creating space for growth and positive change. When you decide to leave, you're essentially saying, I know my value and I refuse to compromise it. This decision, while sometimes painful in the short term, opens the door to relationships and opportunities that align with who you truly are. It's an act of self-love that can set the stage for a life filled with respect, kindness, and genuine connection. I understand that the idea of walking away can feel daunting. The fear of loneliness or the uncertainty of what comes next often holds us back. It's natural to worry about what might happen if you leave behind what's familiar, even if it isn't serving you well. But here's the truth. Staying in a situation that disrespects you only delays the moment when you can find something better. The journey might be challenging at first, but every step you take toward valuing yourself more is a step toward a brighter, more authentic future. There's also a common misconception that walking away is an act of weakness. In reality, it takes immense courage to admit that a situation isn't right for you and to make the decision to change it. It's about acknowledging that you have the power to shape your life and that you deserve an environment where you are respected and appreciated. When you walk away, you're not abandoning a commitment. You're honoring one to yourself. Imagine a scenario where you've invested so much time and energy into trying to change someone's behavior or to salvage a relationship that leaves you feeling constantly diminished. Over time, this effort can wear you down. Instead of draining your energy, consider channeling that energy into pursuits that reinforce your self-worth. Whether it's investing in a passion project, spending time with people who uplift you, or simply enjoying moments of solitude, these choices remind you that you are complete on your own. One important point to remember is that walking away doesn't have to be dramatic or confrontational. Sometimes it's as simple as gradually setting boundaries and stepping back when those boundaries are crossed. It could mean declining invitations that leave you feeling undervalued, or choosing not to engage in conversations that chip away at your confidence. These small acts of self-respect add up over time, creating a clear message that you won't accept anything less than you deserve. I've seen people transform their lives simply by choosing to walk away from what no longer serves them. They discover new opportunities, new friendships, and even new love, all because they honored their inner voice and chose self-respect over complacency. One acquaintance, for example, left a long-term partnership that was filled with subtle, ongoing disrespect. The decision was painful at first, and it took time to heal from the loss of familiarity. However, as she rebuilt her life, she found that she attracted relationships and experiences that were far more rewarding. She grew to realize that walking away was the best gift she could have given herself, a chance to start anew and embrace her true worth. I know that reflecting on these choices can stir up a mix of emotions, fear, sadness, and even guilt. It's normal to feel conflicted when you're faced with the possibility of leaving something behind. But consider this: every moment you remain in an environment that disrespects you is a moment lost in nurturing your true potential. The power of walking away lies in its ability to reset the stage for your life. It's a proactive decision to seek out spaces, relationships, and opportunities that reinforce the respect and love you have for yourself. As we think about the impact of walking away, it's also important to celebrate the strength that comes from such decisions. Each time you choose your self-respect over temporary comfort, you build resilience. You learn that you can weather uncertainty and emerge stronger on the other side. This newfound strength is not just about surviving difficult situations, it's about thriving in the light of your own worth. So let's take a moment to reflect on our own lives. Are there areas where you feel undervalued or disrespected? What would it mean for you to step away from those situations and honor your true worth? I invite you to consider the possibility that walking away is not a loss, but a gain in self-respect, inner peace, and the freedom to build a life that truly reflects who you are. We talked about the importance of knowing when to walk away. I hope these stories and thoughts encourage you to trust your instincts, to honor your boundaries, and to always remember that you deserve respect above all else. Every step toward valuing yourself more is a step toward a life filled with genuine connection and lasting fulfillment. Let's explore some stories of lost and regained respect. Real and relatable examples. Have you ever experienced a moment when you felt your respect was slipping away, only to later reclaim it in a way that changed everything? I'd like to share a few stories, some real, some fictional, that illustrate how respect can be lost, then found again when you choose to honor your true self. I remember a story about a man named Mark. In the early stages of his relationship, Mark was always quick to respond to every text, call, and invitation. At first, his attentiveness was seen as caring, but soon his constant availability began to cast a shadow. His partner, initially touched by his efforts, eventually began to feel smothered. Mark, in his eagerness to prove his affection, unknowingly signaled that his sense of self was too dependent on her attention. Over time, the excitement faded, and what remained was a feeling of being taken for granted. Mark's own self-respect took a hit as he struggled to find a balance between giving love and maintaining his individuality. One evening, after yet another night of feeling unappreciated, Mark decided to take a step back. He spent some quiet time reflecting on what he truly wanted, not just in his relationship, but for himself. He realized that in his quest to be constantly available, he had forgotten to nurture his own passions. Mark started setting small boundaries. He dedicated his evenings to activities he loved, like playing guitar and jogging in the park, which he had neglected for far too long. Gradually, his partner noticed the change. Mark's renewed energy and self-assurance made him more interesting and magnetic. As he began to focus on his own growth, the dynamic between them shifted. Respect and admiration slowly returned, not because he was withholding affection, but because he rediscovered his own worth. His story serves as a reminder that sometimes losing respect is not the end of the road. It can be a turning point. Then there's the story of Samantha, a woman who encountered a different kind of challenge. Samantha worked at a company where she was talented and dedicated, yet her ideas were frequently dismissed in meetings. Over time, she felt that her contributions were being overlooked, and this eroded her confidence. In one particular meeting, after being talked over and seeing her proposal brushed aside yet again, Samantha felt a deep sting of disrespect. That evening, instead of sulking or doubting herself, she decided to take action. She approached her manager privately and calmly expressed how she felt. She emphasized her desire to contribute meaningfully and asked for constructive feedback on how she might better communicate her ideas. Samantha also started to invest more in her personal development outside of work. She joined a local workshop on public speaking and took on small projects that allowed her to lead and innovate. Over the next few months, her confidence grew noticeably. At the following team meeting, Samantha presented a new idea with clarity and conviction. This time, her colleagues listened. Her manager, impressed by the improvement and the clear value of her contribution, began to include her in strategic discussions. The respect that had once seemed lost was gradually rebuilt. Samantha's experience shows that sometimes the path to regaining respect involves a combination of assertiveness and self-improvement, reminding us that our value is not determined solely by how others treat us, but by how we treat ourselves. I also recall a story from a friend, Alex, who found himself caught in a situation where his efforts were met with constant criticism. Alex had a tendency to over-explain his decisions and actions, always trying to justify his worth in every conversation. At a family gathering, a relative made a seemingly offhand comment about his career choices, and instead of brushing it off, Alex spiraled into self-doubt. That evening, he felt his self-respect crumble a little more with each passing remark. But later that night, after some introspection, Alex decided that it was time for a change. He realized that true respect had to start from within. The next day, Alex started by setting small personal goals, like learning a new skill and engaging in activities that reaffirmed his talents. He joined a local sports club, met new people, and gradually learned to value his own judgment. As he began to enjoy these new experiences, he noticed that his interactions with others changed too. Friends and family began to treat him with more deference, not because they were suddenly more respectful, but because Alex's confidence was now unmistakable. His story is a powerful example of how reclaiming your self-worth can shift not only your inner landscape, but also the way others perceive and treat you. These stories share a common thread, the moment of realization that respect is something that must be cultivated from within. Whether it's Mark learning to balance his attentiveness with personal interests, Samantha standing up for her contributions, or Alex rebuilding his self-esteem through new challenges, the key lies in acknowledging your own worth and acting on it. When you allow yourself to prioritize self-respect, you create a ripple effect in all areas of your life. The change might start with small actions, a new hobby, a firm boundary, a calm conversation, but the impact can be profound and far-reaching. Another example comes from a colleague of mine who once struggled in a partnership where he was constantly bending over backwards to meet his partner's needs. Over time, his constant sacrifices began to wear on him, and he started to lose the spark that made him unique. One day, he had an epiphany. He needed to step back and rediscover the person he was before the relationship defined him. He began to invest time in his old hobbies, reconnected with friends, and even planned a solo trip to explore new horizons. With every passing day, he became more vibrant and self-assured. When his partner noticed the change, the relationship was forced into a moment of reckoning. It became clear that respect is a two-way street. If one person consistently compromises their own happiness, the dynamic can become imbalanced. By reclaiming his individuality, my colleague not only regained respect in his own eyes, but also reset the tone of the relationship. It became an opportunity for both to grow and establish a more balanced connection. These narratives remind us that respect, once lost, isn't gone forever. It can be rebuilt with intention and effort. The journey often begins with a simple yet profound step, acknowledging that your worth does not depend on someone else's validation. When you shift the focus inward, investing time and energy in what makes you unique, you naturally create an environment where respect can flourish. I hope these stories resonate with you and encourage you to reflect on your own experiences. Whether you're facing challenges in your personal relationships or professional life, remember that every setback is an opportunity to learn and grow. Sometimes, the journey to regain respect starts with a difficult moment, but it can lead to a much brighter and more fulfilling chapter in your life. We explored these real-life and relatable examples of lost and regained respect. It's a reminder that every setback holds the potential for a comeback. Embrace your journey, trust in your worth, and know that every positive change you make contributes to a life where respect, both from within and from others, can thrive. As we come to the end of our conversation, let's take a moment to reflect on the journey we've been on today. We started by exploring why desperate behavior can sometimes push respect away, even when our intentions are genuine, and how understanding this balance can lead to deeper connections. We then talked about those subtle signs, like over-texting, chasing, or even jealousy, that might inadvertently make us seem overly eager, and how these actions can detract from the natural magnetism of confidence. Remember, it's all about finding that balance between showing you care and preserving your own self-worth. We also dived into the psychology behind respect and attraction. Confidence, as we learned, isn't about being boastful, it's a quiet, steady strength. Embracing principles of self-control helps us navigate challenges without losing sight of who we are, and that calm assurance is something people naturally gravitate toward. Next, we discuss the unspoken tests that sometimes occur in relationships. These moments are opportunities for both partners to show that their self-worth isn't dependent on constant validation. Whether it's through setting boundaries or simply being true to yourself, passing these tests means standing firm in your value. We then explored strategies inspired by timeless wisdom to avoid falling into desperate patterns. By focusing on personal growth and cultivating a life that's full of purpose beyond romantic pursuits, you build a strong foundation that draws respect effortlessly. We also looked at the power of knowing when to walk away. Sometimes, honoring your self-respect means stepping away from situations where you're not valued. The stories we shared show that letting go isn't a loss. It's a powerful step toward reclaiming your inner strength and creating space for a more fulfilling life. And lastly, we dove into some relatable examples, real and imagined, of moments where respect was lost and then gradually regained. These narratives remind us that every setback is an opportunity for a comeback when you invest in yourself and stand by your worth. I hope you found these insights both practical and inspiring. If you've ever felt caught between giving too much and holding back, or if you've had your own experiences of losing and reclaiming respect, I'd love to hear your story. Sharing our journeys not only helps us grow, but also builds a community where we support each other in staying true to ourselves. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If this conversation resonated with you, please consider giving it a like, sharing your thoughts in the comments, and subscribing for more reflections like these. Your support truly means everything, and I look forward to hearing your experiences and continuing this journey together. Take care of yourself, honor your worth, and always remember that true respect starts from within. Until next time, keep shining in your unique way.